So we need more experts to come together to address when there is a complex issue, whether it is climate change, whether it is poverty, whether it is illness, chronic illness. Okay, so now we're talking about distributed expertise. That expertise is distributed across individuals, across individual experts. So they need to work collaboratively, jointly in teams to solve complex problems, because no problem is pre-packaged to be solved by any individual expert in any aspect of social life, in the finance sector, in healthcare, but also in education. Somebody who is an expert in syntax cannot address the issues around discourse. Okay, so we need to bring together individual experts in a team to address complex problems. So that would be distributed expertise. The main notion of distributed expertise is team-based, collective, jointly, joined up expertise. So multidisciplinary teams in hospitals would be a good example. So here is the patient with complex problems. So we need to bring together the surgeon, the psychotherapist, the physiotherapist, the radiologist, and the cardiologist, because the problem is complex. So that goes back, this notion of distributed expertise goes back to the concept of distributed cognition. It was suggested by Edwin Hutchins and Lucy Suchman in the 1990s. So that would be the starting point. Then if we have 2 more minutes, I want to extend the notion of distributed expertise into 2 further domains or dimensions. So the basic concept is distributed expertise as team-based expertise. Individuals coming together to solve complex problems. Same with distributed cognition. So in the paper, I talk about distributed expertise as becoming a very diffused, dispersed concept, because the lay people are also now experts. So we talk about lay expertise, the citizen expertise. So people now have access to the knowledge through the internet, websites, social chat, social media. So they now access expert knowledge and then claim that they are the experts. So expertise is no longer the preserve or the prerogative of the credential experts, the qualified experts. So everybody you talk to in the family claims that they know something about how to become a doctor, how to manage stress, how to cope with cough and cold or flu symptoms. So everybody is claiming some kind of expertise, and this is particularly in those areas of domestic life, like cooking, like interior design, like dress codes, like beautification. So all these areas are becoming the domain of expertise of lay people. So no wonder when there is a debate on the television, you have the real experts, from environmental scientists to doctors and nurses and midwives and engineers, but you also have a citizen expert, a person who has no credential expertise, qualified expertise, but they also need to be listened to. So in the media, increasingly, the citizen expert is more important. It's taking the center ground. So I think I can extend that to say there is some kind of what you might call a democratization of expertise. So expertise is now distributed across the whole society. So that's what we can call distributed expertise as well. Then we have going to have problems when an expert patient meets an expert healthcare provider. They will argue, they will disagree about the side effects, about the medication, about changing medication, because each one has some expertise. So now we're talking about communication on equal terms, although the lay expert might still not know enough. They may not have the intuition and the judgment and the experience. They might only have access to knowledge, but remember, expertise is more than knowledge. So that's another way of thinking about distributed expertise as a democratization, a dispersion of expertise. Then the final point I want to make on the distributed expertise is the expertise now depends on the expert systems. So more and more, increasingly in healthcare, but also in other aspects of education, if you like. So assessments might be done through computers. Teaching might be done through robots. Palliative care might be delivered through robots rather than physicians or nurses. So increasingly, experts are going to rely heavily on expert systems, supercomputers, big data, algorithms. Okay. So that is going to now tell us what to do. So that's another irony in experts and expert systems. It's an area that we need to keep watching over the few decades in the future, because expert systems are meant to be a resource to help experts to make decisions, to do another scan, to do another screening, to do some test through an expert system to help us make a diagnosis. But the time is coming and already happening that the expert systems can take over expertise because they can be more reliable. They are much more consistent and systematic in how they process data. So increasingly, people might begin to trust expert systems. So what does the blood pressure thing say rather than what the doctor says? Okay. So the more we take or believe expert systems, because they're systematic, consistent, objective, they're not biased. Whereas experts can be biased. They can save money from the government by not giving you a screening. So people are going to trust. So trust is going to be very important. Do people trust experts less than expert systems? The more expert systems become very resilient and robust. So then what we might think, distributed expertise is now distributed not only across human beings, like the experts and the lay people, it's also distributed across humans and non-humans. The machines, artificial intelligence, computers. So that's also distributed expertise, that expertise is both human and non-human. Then it is a real issue to think about. Experts and expert systems are complementary. They can complement each other, but they are also a threat, and it has to be addressed very delicately, sensitively. The experts might become redundant when expert systems become robust. And I remember this little anecdote when in the supermarkets in the early days when they started doing these tills, electronic, that you can check through your whatever you have purchased through the till. without going to somebody doing it for you. So the person who developed it lost her job. So once you transfer your expertise to expert systems, there is always a risk that you are no longer required. You are redundant. But the optimism that I share with many others is expert systems will never replace experts. Going back to what I said, expert systems will not have experience. They might have some experience, but that won't be based on judgment and intuition. So the intuition, values, judgment, ethics would still be part of the human expert. And hopefully the time is going to not come when expert systems will make experts declare them dead and irrelevant.